This is a team that is all about, as we know, Tom Brady and the decision on where he's going, what he's doing. You get the feeling he's not going to be there. I think that is either retired or elsewhere. I think pretty much people feel that way. And if that's the case, then it's pretty obvious what their number one need is. So what do you think Tampa Bay does? Because they do have still, some veterans on the team, offensively and defensively. I don't know if they're ready for a rebuild. I don't know if they're ready to bring in a first-round quarterback and stick him in there and see what he can do. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think this is a franchise? See, I think they should go ahead if you want, sign a veteran, start him week one, great. But they've got to invest at some point in this draft on a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Trask has been there for 2 years now. He's thrown 9 career passes. Don't want to use that against him. But even coming out of Florida, I know he was a second rounder. That was a little rich for me when he did come out. It's hard for us to say how much confidence that front office, how much that confidence that coaching staff has in him. And I believe they haven't hired the next OC yet, right? I think that's still kind of up in the air.
As far as I know.
So that's going to be – that can determine what kind of player they want back there. Do they want a pure pocket passer? Do they want someone more mobile? I mean, let's not forget, this was by far the worst running team in football. They were dead last in basically every single important metric when it came to running the football.
And maybe that's part of why Leftwich was fired, because, I mean, you got a 46-year-old quarterback and you're throwing the ball like the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, right. There was definitely a disconnect between Brady and Leftwich. I never felt that way about Brady and Arians. I felt like they were on the same page, even though, they're kind of two cooks in the kitchen there, kind of butting heads. I think they had that mutual understanding of how they were going to score points. I never felt that way with Brady and Leftwich. So you're left with nothing at quarterback if Brady leaves. And what kind of offense do you want to run? Their financial situation is interesting to me. They have guys locked up for a long time, and they're getting paid in, I would say, 2023, 2024, 2025. Guys like Shaquille Barrett, Chris Godwin, they have some big payday. They're going to have to pay Tristan Wirfs coming up in another year or two.
Mike Evans, they're going to have to decide what to do with Mike Evans.
Levante David's a free agent.
Their offensive tackle, Smith.
Yep.
Devin
He's
White.
entering a contract year. Yep.
Shaq Mason.
So
we can go on and on.
What do you this is probably one of the more complicated situations to figure out when you start bringing in the finances. So what are you doing? What are the options at quarterback when you're picking at this point in the draft? I mean, do you take a project quarterback like an Anthony Richardson right away and just give the keys to Blaine Gabbert / Kyle Trask and just say, hey, if we stink this year, we stink? But the roster is solid. It is a solid roster on both sides of the ball. They're playing in the NFC South, which was just won with 8 wins, right? It would be hard for them to say, let's blow this thing up and start trading guys, start releasing guys, set up our cap for the future. But I don't see a way out at quarterback. I just don't know what to do here. So if we were going to stick this with the draft and assuming Brady leaves, I think this is a spot you could get away with bringing in a project quarterback early on.
That's what I think they should do. I think they should spend that first-round draft pick on one of those guys, the Richardson types, and then go ahead and sign a veteran quarterback as insurance, because you don't want to play the first rounder since he's going to be a project. And maybe you give Trask an opportunity to win the job, because I'm not saying to go out and get a Derek Carr. I'm just saying get another veteran guy that can compete. And I think a guy like even a Mike White makes sense. Bring in a guy like that, you know,
absolutely,
and give him an opportunity. Because again, I do believe they should start a mini rebuild. I really do, and that means trade what you can trade, let guys go that you need to let go. That includes Levante David. I think it's time to let Levante. He wants to go somewhere else to win a Super Bowl. Let him go.
Yeah, the Bucs had the most expensive linebacker group in the NFL last year. And what did it really do for them? I agree with you. Levante David needs a Bobby Wagner type move, just somewhere fresh, somewhere new. He still has enough in him. Go to a Super Bowl contender. like Wagner did. Rams obviously had the bad year, but that was more because of injuries than anything. They'll be back in the mix next year. I can see Levante David following that same path. And, a hole that I see on the team that was exposed this year, they have no depth on the offensive line. In 2021, so last year, not this past season, their offensive line played 88% of the snaps together. Okay, there was 4 teams in the NFL that were above 50%. And then all of a sudden that luck ran out. Right? They lose Marpet to retirement. They lose Kappa in free agency, and then Ryan Jensen goes down with that preseason injury. So the entire middle of that line, it just was ravaged, which contributed to the running game issues. And Tom Brady's issues passing the ball were a lot because of pressure. And then you get Tristan Wirfs. He went down eventually. And that exposed a huge issue on that team. They don't have any offensive line depth, and it will need to be addressed.
On offense, again, quarterback is the no-brainer. Like you said, offensive line depth has to be number one, besides maybe even some more wide receiver depth. But defensively, they've got to do something about the defensive backfield, because they've got a bunch of guys that they have to decide who's leaving and who can we afford to bring back. I mean, we got Edwards, Ryan, Neal, Murphy Bunting, Dean. These are all free agents and they have no money. Yeah. So that's some serious issues. And look how much it hurt their pass rushing when Shaq Barrett went down. They just didn't have much. So I would say, though, if I was thinking of the number one position, depending on what they do with the signing of the DBs, I still think maybe they need to get some more help along the defensive line. Some more young defensive linemen to flank Vita Vea. Some high talent guys up front. And I know it's a 3-4, but it's still something that they have to consider. They got a lot of needs. This is not. We talked kind of about this with the Saints, another South Division team. A lot of needs, bad cap issues. Who knows how it's going to all fall out? But we'll find out, obviously, through free agency, way before we have to have our final draft show on the Bucs.
Yep.